Hello everyone, welcome to this week's tutorial. So this week we'll be talking about databases. I hope everyone can hear me. So first we'll go over some SQLite queries, and then later on we'll talk about how to run SQLite queries in Python and how to connect to SQLite databases in Python. So let's go ahead and get started on the first question. So in this question, we're going to be performing a query on this sample table that they provided here called employees. And this table has various columns just containing various attributes of a particular various. So each row is an employee, and each column represents attributes of that employee. So let's see. There's two viewers. Not sure if one of them is, if it counts me as one of the viewers, or if there's actually two other people. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started on this question. So we want to display um, the names. So we want to create a sort of like a resulting table that displays the first and last names of each employee. So we want to take this whole table and just keep the first and last names of every employee. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to the editor. And so the way you do that is using a um, type of query called a select statement. So it looks something like this, where you specify select, and then like here, I'll just use ellipses as a placeholder for now, but you'd specify some attributes here, and then you type from, and then the name of the table. So in our case, the table name is employees. So we'll say employees, and then you just have to end it with a semicolon, or end each query with a semicolon. So now let's specify our attributes. So we can say select first name and last name from employees. Now you can also provide uh, an alias for each name. So actually, before we do that, let's just go ahead and run this. So from the request. Um, hmm. That shouldn't be happening. Let me just refresh the page. Let's try that again. So there's nothing wrong with this query here, but um, I don't know, there might be a problem with this website. Could be wrong. So let's go ahead and try another. So let's just look at the solution link here. See if we can. If there's an editor here somewhere that we can use. There was a problem with the request. And this was working before. I don't know what happened now. Let me just check something. So, yes, sorry about that. So, I just talked to the other TAs, and so it looks like there's some problem with the website. So, for now, I'll just use this other database that we have called videogames.db. And so we'll just use videogames.db and just run some queries on it. So I guess this way we can learn about how to use SQLite in Python. So we can learn both the Python syntax for using it as well as the syntax of the actual SQLite queries. Like we can learn them together. So if you want to connect to an SQLite database in Python, you type import SQLite 3, then you have to create a connection. So connection equals SQLite3 dot connect, and then you specify the name of the database. And then you also need to define a cursor using the connection. So call the cursor method of the connection object that we just created. Okay, so first, like one important thing that we might want to do is list all the tables that we potentially have in our database. So a query to do that would be, I'll just show you that in a second. So table names to list all tables. So because in this case, like, you might be looking at this and you might be thinking, oh, okay, so there's a video games DB, but we don't know, how many tables it has, like what kind of tables. So let's just go ahead and write a query to figure that out. So you use your cursor and you call the execute method, which takes in an SQL query as a string. So just like how we were typing our queries earlier on that website in a text box, here we just type it inside a string. So we type SQ select name from SQLite master. So in this case, SQLite master is just a master listing of all the objects in a database. So in this case, SQLite master contains the list of everything in this video games database, and so we want to extract the name of all those objects that are listed. So, and I guess select name. So actually, let's just go ahead and run this and see what happens. So, and then we need to do just fetch the results. So c.fetch all. We can store it in info, and then we can do print info. And just /n. So let's go ahead and run that and see what happens. Oh, okay, I can just do this. Okay, so it looks like we only have one object in our database, which makes it convenient in this case. However, it is possible in a real-world scenario that we might have multiple different objects. So in that case, if we only want to return the names of tables, we can specify an extra condition. So select name from SQLite master where type equals table. And yeah, we can just end it with a semicolon. And yeah, there you have it. So we have a table in this database named Mario Games. which which one my guess probably holds the information for all the Mario games that have been published over the years. So let's now go ahead and look at this, look at the contents of this table. So a quick way to do that is to use the query select star from Mario games. So this just selects like everything from Mario games. So it'll go through each row and select all the columns for each row. So like I said, like each row represents sort of like a real world entity. In this case, that real world entity is a Mario game. So this will go to each row or entity and retrieve all the attributes of that entity. And it'll do that for every entity. So, okay, we have that. And now, so that'll return like a whole bunch of rows. So we could do c.fetch all again. However, now we have various rows, so iterate over each row. So for row, actually before we do that, let's go ahead and see what happens if we try to print each row. Okay, so yeah, so like it returns all the results, but it's not you know, the prettiest result. So we want to go ahead and iterate over each row and print it individually on each line. So yeah, there we go. So those are the contents of that table. So it has 11 different Mario games and just some information about each game. Now, if we wanted the names of each column, what we can do is we can actually use a property of our cursor called description. So let's go ahead and see what is inside description. Here, let me just move this up. Okay, so the first element in each of these tuples is the name of the column. So let's go through this. Looks like it's rounded brackets. So let's go through this tuple here. So for description in c.description, let's just use this short form for generating lists. So for each description in c.description, keep the first element. and this will store everything in a list. So it's just like a shorthand for generating lists. So yeah, there we go. So the four columns in our table are game ID, game, which I assume is game name, then some so the dimension of the game, as in whether it's 2D or 3D, and also the rating of that game. Okay, so right now we have, oh actually, I think this would look nice if we printed this before. So if we print it here, okay, so this looks much better. Our column names are right above, almost right above each column. So it just looks prettier. Okay, so yeah, if you have any questions so far about any of the syntax I've used, feel free to type it in the live chat. Alright, so I'll just put a comment here. So this was column names and column info. So now let's go ahead and do some aliasing, because like if we look at the names of some of these columns here, like there's a name called game ID, which is camel cased, and some of these names so like for example here it says game, but perhaps it should say game name, and perhaps we want to capitalize each column name. So it is possible to do that with aliasing. So we have c.execute again. This time we are interested in writing a query where we just want to retrieve the game ID and the name from our table. So this is what it would look like. But if we wanted to have like prettier column names, we could just specify an alias for each column name. So in this case, we want this all like capitalized properly, and not camel case. So we say game ID, and here we can say game name. So yeah, again, we can just get all the rows, fetch all, iterate over and print each row. And yeah, there you have it. One second. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so we can see that now it prints the alias of the column names that we just created. Or sorry, the aliases we just created for our column names. Okay, so that was aliasing. Now let's go. Another thing we might be interested is that in each row we might want to find the number of, or sorry, like a set of all like distinct values or unique values. So say we're interested in knowing like, oh, what are all the possible, dimensions for any for all Mario games? Like, can they be 1D, 2D, 3D, or 4D? Like, what are all the possible values? So the way we could figure that out is by typing in is by executing this query. So we would say select, and as we know, we have a dimensions column. So select dimensions from Mario games, and so if we do that, I mean, this just returns. I'll just copy, paste this. So that just returns, um, all the possible dimensions. So, however, we want a set of the unique dimensions. So, in this case, we would type in distinct, and now it only gives us a set of all the distinct values in the dimension column. So I'll just go ahead and add a comment. So this is for distinct values. Okay. Another thing we might be interested in is ordering. So we might want to, fetch a list of tuples, for some query, but we want them to be ordered in some way. So in this case, let's go back to what kind of values we have. So we have, dimensions, ratings. So let's go ahead and order our query results by the dimensions. So order by. So if we have a query such as select in everything from Mario games, this will return everything, but it won't be ordered in any defined way. So we'll go ahead and specify an order. So order by the values in the dimensions column. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Ooh, okay. Let's just clean this up a little bit. Oh, I'm printing row each time. My bad. There we go. Yeah, so all the 1D games are listed first, followed by 2D, and then followed by 3D. So we can also order by other things, so like we can order by ratings. Let me just make sure the column name is correct. No, so it's singular. There we go. So lowest rated game to highest rated game. Right, awesome. So manipulation on some column values. So for instance, all our ratings here are out of 100, but maybe we want it to be out of 10. So let's go ahead and manipulate that rating value. So select game, select game ID, game rating. So here's where the math comes in. So I mean, it's just simple math. So we have a rating value. We'll just multiply it by 0.1 because it's out of 100 right now. So to make it out of 10, we'll just multiply by 0.1, and then just our same as usual, just from our table Mario games, and the same printing code. So yeah, there you go. So let me also order this by rating. So as you can see, this game here, it was rated as had a rating of 10.2 before. Now it's 1.02, and this game here had a rating of 100. Now it has a rating of 10. Yeah, any questions so far? Feel free to post it in the live chat. Okay. So another thing we might be interested in is the type of ordering. So earlier we wrote a query which returned results in ascending order. However, we might be interested in getting our queries in descending order. So let's go ahead and write such a query. So c.execute select game ID, game rating, from Mario games, order by rating. So this is the same as what we had before. However, now we can say order by rating in descending order. So again, let's go ahead and print the results of that query. And as you can see, it's highest rated game first, and they're listed in descending order until the lowest rated game. Alright, awesome. Let's move on to the next one, which is yes, so some aggregate functions. So say we have a list of values, but we want to do some arithmetic on all those values, or not arithmetic, sorry, like all the values in a column. So this one, so let's say we want to get, for whatever reason, the total rating. So we want to add up all the ratings in the ratings column and see what that value is. So c.execute select sum rating from Mario games. Alright. There we go. So yeah, so the sum of all the ratings is 812.5, which, I don't know, maybe someone might be interested in knowing that, so that's how you do it. Actually, let's try to see. I mean, I don't know if this will work, but let's see if we can find the average using AVG. I mean, I don't remember exactly if it's AVG for average, but let's go ahead and try, see if that works. Yeah, it works. Okay. I'll just copy that as a new example. So that one was sum, this one will be average. Awesome. So yeah, the average rating, yeah, this might be more useful information. The average rating of all the Mario games is 73.864 out of 100. Okay, another thing we might be interested in is finding min and max values. So maybe we want to find the maximum value in a column. So let's look at the minimum and maximum. So let's try to query, select, and again, so you can just use a function. So in this case, max. You call that function on a column, in this case rating. And actually we can do that twice. So as in we can call a function, we can call two different functions in the same query. So that too on the same column. So max rating, min rating from Mario games. Rows equals c dot fetch all for row in rows. Awesome, and yeah, you can see like we have the min and max values here, which I mean we already verified that before when we printed tables in the order for ordered by ratings. So yeah, our min and max are indeed 10.2 and 100. Okay, awesome. Another thing we might be interested in is, actually let me just modify, so another thing we might be interested in is, like how many values we have in a column. So we might be interested in counting the number of values in a column. So let's go ahead and write a query for that. So c.execute select count from Mario games. Oh, I spelled the column name wrong. There we go. Okay, 11 entries. We can actually also just combine all the different aggregate function results to one query. So we can say the sum, the average, and the count. Here we go, 11 games, average rating 73, total rating 812. And yeah, and if you don't know like the names of the columns for whatever reason, then you can also just do this, where you just put star to say you just want the total number of rows. So like this might be in case like maybe some of the for some rows maybe some column values aren't filled in. So here you can just count all the rows. So let's go ahead and run this. So yeah, in our case, all column values are filled in, so the number of rows is also 11. Okay, so another thing we might be interested in is counting the number of distinct values. So count distinct values. So in this case, we would do c.execute select count so like we did earlier, we type distinct. So if you want to know the number of distinct dimensions, you can do distinct dimensions. So like add the distinct filter onto our column and then call surround that using it by the count function. So select count distinct dimensions from Mario games. So let's go ahead and print that result. And yeah, we just like we looked at earlier, our dimensions were 1, 2, and 3, which are 3 distinct values. And yeah, this query just told us that we do indeed have 3 distinct dimensions in the dimensions column of our table. So that's it for all the different queries that I wanted to show you. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial and learned something new. If you have any questions, feel free to type it in the live chat. Or if you're watching this at a later time, feel free to email me. And yeah, I'll just stick around for a few minutes in case anybody decides to ask any questions. And yeah, thanks for listening to this tutorial.